story opens in a humble home, where a middle-aged woman is on the phone while juggling her household chores. The voice on the other end of the line shows concern, worried about how she's holding up as a single mother. But the woman brushes it off with a warm laugh, assuring them that she's doing just fine, that everything is under control. She then asks the caller if they're really that busy taking care of grandpa and grandma. But the moment the conversation shifts to the topic of bringing someone new into the picture, her expression stiffens. She clenches her teeth, clearly irritated. Clearly fed up with the topic, she cuts in firmly, telling the caller that her daughter, Kotakan, is more than enough for her. She doesn't need anyone else in their lives. This is the story of a single mother who has no love left for men. But fate might just throw someone completely unexpected her way. While out running errands with her daughter Kodo, things take a sudden turn. Kodo urgently needs to pee. Her mother immediately tenses up, clearly annoyed. She scolds Kodo for not going to the bathroom earlier, frustration written all over her face. Without wasting another second, she rushes off, telling Kodo she can't wait. She has something important she needs to take care of. Suddenly, a voice calls out from behind her. Someone tells her she dropped something. She turns around and sees a man lying casually on someone's lap, pointing at the ground. He says the item must have fallen out of her bag. She quickly bends down, picks it up, and thanks him before hurrying off again, thinking to herself that he was pretty helpful. But just a few steps later, she stops dead in her tracks. Wait a second, wasn't that guy a college student? Something felt off. It's the first time she's ever seen someone just casually lounging around the park at 8 p.m. Sure, he was kind enough to help her, but still, not the type of person she wants anywhere near her daughter. But then, out of nowhere, Kodo chimes in. I like that guy. Her mother snaps her head toward her, completely stunned. What do you mean you like him? Kodo grins and explains. He looks just like a character from that show I watch. Disagreeing with her daughter, the mother says she likes that character too. But seriously, she doesn't see the resemblance at all. Later that night, after wrapping up her office work, she lets out a long sigh. No way she'll ever run into that guy again. Right? Meanwhile, somewhere else, a girl wraps her arms around a boy named Yuki and gives him a quick kiss on the cheek. Back at the apartment, the mother returns home. As she glances to the side, she suddenly stops in her tracks. It's him. That same mysterious guy. He's her next-door neighbor. And to make things worse, the guy totally gives off Playboy vibes. Yuki walks over, instantly noticing the resemblance between the two. Clicks. These must be the new neighbors who just moved in. He crouches down to the little girl's level and asks with a smile, "What's your name?" The baby replies confidently, "I'm Kotakan." Meanwhile, her mother stands frozen, completely stunned by how bizarre this whole encounter has become. Kodo looks up at Yuki with curious eyes and asks, "Is that girl you were with your friend?" Yuki casually nods. "Yeah, she is." The woman watches him closely now, her gaze sharp. Something about him feels off, like he might not be the most decent guy around. Her suspicion grows. She starts painting a picture in her head. A college student with too much free time, probably careless, maybe even a little reckless. She offers him a polite thanks for helping her out earlier that morning, but doesn't hold back. "You're a student, right? Shouldn't you be in class? Seems like you're wasting your time instead of focusing on your future." Her frustration boils over. She marches forward and snaps, "I can't believe I have to live next to someone so trashy." Then bam, she slams the door shut behind her. Yuki stands there, completely thrown off. Wait, did she just call me trash? He's confused. How does enjoying life make him trash? But as he stares at the closed door, a tiny doubt starts creeping in. Maybe, is she right? He leans forward and lightly bumps his head against her door, letting out a quiet sigh. Man, she's a tough mother, he mutters to himself. Just then, his phone rings. He picks up and casually says, "Yeah, let's just meet at my place tomorrow. I'm kinda broke right now. Can't really afford to go out." The next day rolls in and she's still in a bad mood. Having someone like Ken as her next-door neighbor makes it hard to concentrate. Something about him just puts her on edge. Deep down, she's worried he might be a bad influence on her daughter. Just then, a gentle voice calls out from behind. "Hara-chan, how's the new office treating you?" She turns and responds politely, "Thanks to your help, I've been able to settle in without any trouble." The older man smiles and compliments her, mentioning that people in the office are already talking about her beauty. After all, it's been over a decade since anyone's seen a young graduate move into this place. He chuckles and adds, "Come to think of it, we haven't even thrown you a proper welcome party yet." Out of nowhere, the older man gives her a light pat on the shoulder and casually says, "Want to grab lunch sometime? Just the two of us." She freezes, totally caught off guard. Later, in the office kitchen, she quietly makes herself a hot cup of tea, wincing as the steam rises and stings her face. As she heads back to her desk, she catches whispers floating through the hallway. Some coworkers are quietly doubting her, wondering if a single mother like her can really handle a full-time job. They murmur about the last working mom who cracked under pressure, and complain about people using kids as an excuse to slack off. Back at her desk, she sets down her tea and a few tablets, trying to collect herself. Just then, her boss approaches again, this time with a kind tone. "Don't push yourself too hard, especially as a woman." But those words hit differently. Something inside her shifts, a flicker of frustration, or maybe something deeper. She grips the tablets tightly in her hand, her eyes narrowing with silent fury. That comment, it struck a nerve. With a quiet, simmering intensity, she rejects the idea that she'd ever use her child as an excuse. In that moment, her mind sharpens with a burning resolve. She'll prove them all wrong. She can handle everything on her own. The man walks away, clearly unsettled by her reaction. Did he say something wrong? Time passes, then suddenly, bang! She slams her hand on the desk and stands up. "I've finished reviewing all the records," she says firmly. With a swift motion, she slings her bag over her shoulder and heads for the door, tossing out a quick goodbye behind her. Her coworkers are left speechless. None of them expected her to pull it off alone. Meanwhile, her daughter is waiting, eyes fixed on the clock. The woman runs through the streets without stopping, phone pressed to her ear as she pants out apologies. She bursts through the preschool gates at exactly 5:59 p.m. breathless. Soaked in sweat, she drops to her knees and immediately apologizes to Kodo for being late. But Kodo doesn't say a word, just stares at her, worried. Her mom's heavy breathing. It's scary. Suddenly, a girl standing next to Kodo lights up and dashes into the arms of her father, shouting with joy. Hera, Narhara, and Kodo watch the heartwarming scene in silence. For a moment, Hera feels that familiar sting in her chest, a quiet sadness she can't shake. But then, Kodo wraps her arms around her waist and says softly, "I always want to be with you, Mommy." Hera's heart melts. She smiles, gently pats Kodo's head, and replies, "We'll always be together. I promise." On the walk home, Kodo looks up at her mom and asks sweetly, "Can I play with the neighbor?" But Hera, Narhara gently, yet firmly, replies, "No, not today." Back inside their apartment, dinner is served. Without warning, Kodo starts throwing a full-blown tantrum. "Ugh, I don't want this. The vegetables taste gross." Narhara's expression hardens. "You have to eat them," she says, her tone stern and unwavering. But Kodo keeps whining, arms crossed and lips pouting. "It tastes bad." Later that night, Narhara is completely drained, barely keeping herself upright in front of her laptop. She drags her tired eyes toward the doorway, where she quietly watches Kodo fast asleep. A soft sigh escapes her lips. No matter how exhausted she feels, she reminds herself, she has to keep going. She's determined to become a full-time employee, for both their futures. She recalls a moment from the past, when she apologized to her own mother, not for the failed marriage, but for not choosing a different path afterward. Depending on someone else only left her feeling emptier. For someone like Narhara, love seemed to bring nothing but trouble. That's why she made a vow, to live her life with only her daughter by her side. As the first light of dawn creeps in, the soft chirping of birds blends with the cheerful voice of Kodo, waking her from sleep. Kodo finds her mother, Narhara, slumped over her desk, barely awake, eyes half shut. Startled, Narhara suddenly jerks upright, realizing she dozed off in the middle of her work. One glance at the clock sends her into full panic mode. She hurries Kodo along, telling her to brush her teeth, wash her face, and quickly eat some bread. Kodo pauses, trying to check if her mother's okay, but Narhara forces a smile and insists, "I'm fine." Just as they're about to head out, Narhara suddenly freezes. A wave of nausea hits her hard, her body sways, legs give out, and she collapses. Barely conscious, she calls out in a faint, trembling voice, "Kodo." Then everything fades to black. Kodo stands frozen in place, shocked, confused, unable to understand what just happened. Meanwhile, over at another place, Yuki walks through the door carrying breakfast. And a girl. Yuki notices the neighbor's door is slightly open. And inside, he hears Kodo's frightened voice calling out. Without hesitation, he hands the breakfast bag to the girl beside him and tells her to wait outside. Then he bolts into the apartment. Inside, he finds Narhara collapsed on the floor. He rushes over, gently trying to wake her. But Narhara, shaking and clearly in pain, pushes him away with a strained voice. "I don't need a man's help," she says firmly. Yuki freezes for a moment, shocked. But then his eyes shift to Kodo, who's crying uncontrollably nearby. Snapping back into action, he speaks sharply, "Your daughter is crying." Without another word, he scoops Narhara up and carries her to the bed. Narhara is barely conscious. Everything feels like a blur. She can hardly register her daughter's voice. Seeing the situation, Yuki calmly grabs her phone and contacts her workplace, informing them of her condition and submitting a leave request on her behalf. He turns to Kodo, kneels down, and gently says, "You did your best helping your mom today. It's okay to rest now." Still teary-eyed, Kodo looks up at Yuki and says he looks like a cool character. Yuki chuckles, glancing down at himself. He's still wearing an apron. Soon after, he finishes setting the table, filling it with a spread of mouth-watering food. Meanwhile, Narahara slowly stirs awake, her head throbbing from the aftermath. Before she can even sit up, Yuki calmly tells her she probably collapsed from anemia and that he already contacted her workplace. Yuki glances around the apartment, then turns back to Narahara and says she's clearly been pushing herself way too hard. Taking in the clutter and signs of exhaustion, he asks if she's really handling everything by herself. He then mentions he has a younger sister, so he gets how overwhelming it can be. With a firm but gentle tone, he tells her straight up, "Sometimes you've got to lean on others. You can't do it all alone." Narahara clenches her fists tightly and lowers her gaze. She quietly apologizes, admitting that as a single mother without any support, every time she tries to rely on someone else, it chips away at her confidence. She confesses it's not easy to depend on others, not when she's had to stand on her own for so long. Yuki gives a small, almost teasing smile and says, "Relying on some random guy like me shouldn't be a big deal. I mean, come on. You clearly don't have feelings for a drunk college student like me, right?" He adds with a smirk, "So you might as well take advantage of guys, since we're trash anyway, aren't we?" Yuki gently places his hand on her forehead, checking her temperature. "You're fine. Nothing serious," he says softly. After stepping out to take out the trash, he comes back in and casually mentions, "I made more than just porridge. So, eat when you're ready." Then, before heading out, he pauses by the door and finally introduces himself. "The name's Kuzunaga Yuki." He looks back at her, voice calm but firm. "You should see a doctor before things get worse." With that, Yuki gives a quick nod, turns around, and quietly shuts the door behind him. The mother and daughter sit down to eat. Kodo's eyes light up the moment she sees the beautifully arranged meal Yuki had made. It's like something out of a picture book. She takes a small bite, then a sip, and suddenly, her eyes begin to shimmer. Before she knows it, silent tears roll down her cheeks. She doesn't say a word, just keeps eating, quietly crying. With her gaze lowered, the mother softly apologizes to her daughter. The next morning, she carefully puts together a small gift box. Inside, she tucks a handwritten thank you note, neatly signed with both of their names. As she seals it, she murmurs under her breath, "Even a guy like him deserves a little courtesy." She rings the doorbell over and over, until finally, the door creaks open. Yuki appears, eyes immediately catching sight of the meat in her hands. For a moment, his expression softens, lost in thought. Tuko stands nearby, a bit unsure how to respond, and gently tells Kodo it's time to go home. But Kodo doesn't move. Instead, she takes a bold step forward and says loud and clear, "Thank you, Yuki. I loved the food. And thank you for helping my mom." Yuki gives a gentle smile before quietly closing the door. Kodo lets out a small sigh of relief as Tuko softly pats her head. But just then, a loud crash erupts from Yuki's apartment, followed by angry, furious shouting. Both Tuko and Kodo freeze in place. Tuko's eyes widen, her whole body stiffens, clearly shaken. Back at home, Tuko switches on the TV, and Kodo freezes, eyes wide in disbelief. It's the first time she's ever been allowed to watch it. Her mom usually avoids anything that might cost extra, especially distractions like this. But now, the screen flickers to life and Kodo's face lights up. She turns to Tuko, eyes sparkling, and asks softly, "Really? I can watch it." Tuko lets out a gentle chuckle and says, "Today's a special occasion." She adds that she's heading out to talk to the neighbor, so Kodo should go ahead and enjoy the show by herself. Kodo nods excitedly, her face beaming with joy. Meanwhile, Tuko takes a deep breath, her body tense, and steps out of the apartment. Tuko is ready to call the police if things get out of hand. She's convinced something serious is happening inside Yuki's place after hearing all those strange noises. But the moment she pushes open his door, she freezes. Women's belongings are scattered all over the floor, and someone is grabbing Yuki. The man's rage explodes the second he spots Tuko. He grabs Yuki even tighter, shouting furiously, accusing him of chasing after his woman, even though Yuki already has someone else. With a crazed look, he threatens to kill him. Tuko freezes, unsure if stepping in will help or only make it worse. Suddenly, a girl clings to the furious man, her voice trembling as she apologizes, saying everything is her fault. Tuko's mind is spinning. She can't make sense of what she just walked into. She steps back out for a moment, her thoughts jumping to that 200,000 yen. Then it hits her, that overly flirty girl she saw when she first came to the apartment. Storming back in, Tuko cuts straight to the point. She looks the girl dead in the eye and asks, "You're the one who was all over Yuki-kun last week, aren't you?" Then, with a sharp glare, she adds, "Looks to me like you're just trying to cover up your own cheating." The man whips around, confused. "What are you talking about?" He snaps at Tuko. Yuki steps in, voice calm but firm. "Yeah, I met her yesterday too," he says, "but she never once mentioned having a boyfriend." Then Yuki turns to the guy and adds, "She was seriously forward with me. You saw it, right?" His tone shifts, now he's hurt. "And now you're pinning everything on me, letting me take the beating for something I didn't do? That's low." Suddenly, Tuko grabs her phone and dials. She tells the police there's shouting and what sounds like someone getting beaten in the apartment next door. She urges them to come right away. Eventually, the strangers storm out. Yuki wipes the blood from his mouth and sinks to the floor, exhausted. Tuko crosses her arms. "What kind of mess have you gotten yourself into now?" Yuki lets out a shaky sigh of relief. "Thank God. You saw everything." Tuko scolds Yuki again, frustration clear in her voice. "Why didn't you say something sooner?" Yuki looks away, embarrassed. "I've been in deep trouble before. I thought rushing things might help." Then, with a faint smile, he looks back at her. "And that fake police call? That was genius. Seriously, well played." Still puzzled, Tuko listens closely as Yuki opens up. He admits he once lent a huge amount of money to a friend, who then completely disappeared. Ever since, his savings have been slowly draining away. Yuki sinks down onto the floor, his voice low. "I don't even know what I'll do once it's all gone." Tuko just stands there, frozen. The truth hits her hard. Yuki is being used. Clutching the fabric of her shirt tightly, Tuko stares at Yuki in disbelief. "How can you be this calm after everything? After being betrayed like that?" Her voice cracks. "Don't you feel anything? No anger? No resentment?" But Yuki just gives a small, tired smirk. "Whether it was for my looks or my money, at least it means I had value to someone. And isn't that kind of a compliment in its own way?" Tuko stands there, completely thrown off. She can't tell if Yuki's way of thinking comes from a genuinely kind heart or something darker, like a deep-rooted self-destructive streak. While her thoughts spiral, Yuki strolls over and casually opens the fridge, like nothing happened. Tuko snaps out of it. "What are you gonna do if you end up losing all your money?" Staring out the window, Yuki answers with a shrug. "If it really comes to that, I might just work at a brothel, or try my luck as a host." His voice is oddly calm, like he's talking about grocery shopping. Even sketchy part-time jobs, like forging checks or delivering suspicious envelopes, they pay well enough. And honestly, getting arrested might not be the worst outcome. Tuko stares at Yuki, completely thrown off. "Why didn't you just say you were struggling?" Yuki turns slightly, but his eyes are distant, like he's looking past everything. She slowly rises from her seat, voice steady but laced with pain. "I don't know what pushed you to this point, how you cover up all that self-destruction with jokes like it's nothing." Then she adds, her words hitting hard, "There's nothing more heartbreaking than seeing someone young already look like they've given up." Then, in a quieter tone, Tuko says her daughter's grown attached to Yuki, especially after everything that's happened. If he goes through with those reckless plans, it won't just hurt him. It'll affect her daughter, too. She looks at him and asks, "Are you really that kind of person?" Yuki, still smiling as he holds a can in his hand, replies with a half-joke, "So if I get arrested, does that mean you'd be in trouble too?"